Welcome to this online demonstration with Artistic Digitizer. This week we're going to be looking at creating our very own in the hoop quilt blocks. So with the in the hoop quilt block that we will be creating in this lesson, we're going to be including some applique as our feature. So first of all, what we need to do is we open up our Artistic Digitizer software. We then need to come over and we need to select our hoop and machine. So the machine that I have got to use for our demonstration is the Memory Craft 15,000. And the hoop I'm going to use is the SQ23. So by using the SQ23, it will allow me to create an 8 by 8 inch block. The next thing we need to do is we need to select our fabric. So if you click on the fabric, you can see here it brings up a whole series of options. Because we're using quilting cottons to create our quilt blocks, so just your basic homespun type fabrics, we're just going to set our fabric onto cotton. And you can see up here with our colour, I have left it as white. This will allow us to be able to see all our design pieces that we're going to be creating. So once we've selected our fabric, we can come down here and press OK. Okay. So we've got our fabric and our hoop set. We can now go and select Create New. And this is going to give us a blank canvas. So if I just scroll out with my mouse, you can see our grid area that we've got in front of us. I don't have the hoop turned on, so if I wanted to be able to actually visually see the hoop, I can come up here to View, and where it says Hoop, I can click on the hoop, and now you can see that you can see our hoop and then our grid inside as well. So the next step is we need to bring in the artwork that we want to use to create our applique centerpiece for our block. So we're going to come up here to From File, and we're going to locate where our mouse is playing up a little bit. Here we go. We want to create where our artwork is saved. So this is the artwork that you received in your email. So I've created a folder here, and the name is October. So we click on that one and we open it up. The next thing we need to take note is, as you can see up here, our type that we're going to set up. We're going to work with Open as Backdrop. So this is going to bring our image into our hoop area, but allow us to actually take more control over what stitches that we're going to place and where. If we did auto digitize, that means that you're allowing the computer to take the control, and what it does is it will automatically create it itself, but then you don't get any control on what stitches go where. So I like to have that complete control, and then you can choose what you want to keep and what you don't want to keep in your artwork, in your final design. The next thing we need to take note on is our resolution down the bottom. So it refers to our width and our height, and that is our actual size of our image that we're creating. So what we're going to do is we're going to set our height to 203.2. So 203.2 will actually give us an 8 by 8 inch block. Okay, so you can see here I clicked OK, but nothing's come up. So we click on our grid and our image will then appear. So we now have our image inside our hoop area, so we can start to create our applique pieces. So if you wanted to, we actually do have an auto feature on the software to create our applique, but like I said before, I do like to have full control over what aspects I want to keep and what not to keep in when it comes to digitizing. So today I'm going to show you how to manually create your applique from scratch. So if we come over here to digitize on the left hand side and it says outline shape, we're going to click on that one. So it looks like a little pencil. And we're going to scroll into the center tier drop here in our screen. Our next step, we're going to use our left and right clicks on our mouse. I come in a bit closer, there we go. And we're just going to trace around the outside of the teardrop, until we get back to the beginning. So at this point in time, I'm using the left click on the mouse, which will give you the round node, and then if you use the right click on the mouse, that will give you our point. So hold that down, there we go. So you can see here, now that we've created the outline of that shape, it's changed color. So to finish that off, we then come up here and we select rectangle selection, and that puts the stitches inside. You can also see here down at the bottom in the outline and the fill, the outline is set as a black outline and the fill is set as a white fill. But we don't actually want our stitches inside, so we're going to turn off our fill. And then we're going to come up here, and where it says auto, we're going to change to manual. And then that will allow us to see every little piece we have created in our design and allow us to have more control over whether we want to make changes to that. So if I click off of this, you can now see that it has a black line around the outside. So if we click on it again, over here in our sequence, it's selected. Okay, so the black outline is going to be our placement line. So if you have a think about when you send it through to the embroidery machine, I like to have my applique have a placement line. I then like a tack down stitch, I guess. So, and then we finally then go over the top with our satin stitch. So we've created the first one. We come over here to our sequence. We can then copy and paste. So you can now see that we have two identical shapes here. Both are in black. So if we sent this through to our embroidery machine as it is, the machine wouldn't fully understand that it needs to stop between those two stitches. So the easiest way for the machine to understand that we need to stop is by changing the color. So when I do create my applique, I will create my my first stitch will be in a black. So the placement stitch will be in the black, and then I will have my tack down stitch in a green. So while we have our sequence menu open and it's selected, so it's got the purple box around it, we can come down to our color and we're going to change it to green. So If I clicked on it here, you can see that it's got a little bucket. That means that would actually fill in with stitches, but we don't actually want to do that. We just want the outline stitch to be green. So that's where we come up to a little white section and it changes to a pencil. So if we click on that, you can now see in our sequence that it's changed to green. The other thing I like to do when I'm creating my applique, and this is a real personal preference, and this is why I do like to create mine from scratch, is I like to change my stitch to a double. So this is the tack down stitch. So this is the stitch that will be holding our fabric into place. So I've changed that to a double stitch to give it a bit more stability and hold our fabric down. Okay. So if we click off, you can now see that there's a green stitch. So then what we need to do is we need to select it again, and we're going to copy and paste again. So that gives us 3 now in our sequence that are all exactly the same size. So if you went through and created one and then came back over and created another one, there might be a chance that your sizes might be out a little bit. Whereas if you copy and paste, you then know that it's going to be identical over each other. And because we're going to make this a blue area, we're going to change our color to blue. So while we have number 3 selected, we're going to change our color to ocean blue. Sounds good to me. Okay. But if we left it like this, when we would cut our fabric back, we'd have shaggy edges around the edge. So we now need to change our running stitch, as you can see up here, to a satin stitch. And the other thing I like to do is I like to make my stitch widths, and this will be a personal preference, 3.5. So you'll find over time as you create your own designs, you'll have a personal preference on what sort of width you like and what sort of length you like in your stitches. So 3.5 mil will give me a nice cover. It will keep, I find personally, it keeps all the ragged edges underneath, and it's my favourite stitch. The other thing I like to do with my satin stitch is I will come down here and I'm going to select Underlay. And over in the box in the Underlay, you can actually, if we click on that one out, you see that there's a whole series of different underlay types. So with the cross, what that will actually do is the beginning of the stitch, so the underlay of the stitch will actually be a zigzag. So it will come down and it will zigzag over that area. So it will zigzag over all those raw stitches that you cut, sorry, the raw edge of that fabric that you've cut back in our previous tack down stitch section. So it will cover all those all the way around the outside before it then starts that satin stitch over the top. So it will give you, not only does it reinforce that fabric, but it also give you a nice finish to the edge. So we now have our little I keep calling it a tear duck, our teardrop inside. The other thing I will do is in our properties over here, in our satin stitch, it's got remove overlaps. And I'm going to change that to never. Okay. Because we don't want any overlaps removed. So if it removes overlaps, it means that these stitches underneath may have gaps in it. And being a stitch that's going to reinforce our fabric, we don't want that. Okay. So we've clicked off that, our first little teardrop. We're going to come down here to the smaller one and we're going to create our second. And we are literally going to repeat that same process. So we come over here to digitize. We're going to create the outline of our shape. Using the right and left clicks of the mouse. We're then going to select rectangle selection to complete. We're going to remove our fill stitch, and that's going to be our placement line, our placement stitch for our next applique piece. We're then going to select it in our sequence menu. We can then copy and paste, and we can change the color. So if we come over here now to the color palette that we've got in the bottom left hand corner, you can see that you're going to choose the same color that you used before. And we're going to change our stitch to a double. So if we zoom in, you can now see that we've got a green running stitch. We're going to select it and copy and paste for our third time. We're going to change it to blue. We're going to change to a satin stitch. We're going to change our outline to 3.5. Turn on our underlay and set as never. Okay. Okay. So we now have two applique pieces here, and we need to create a third one. So we can go ahead and we can create that as we did before, or we can hold down Control and select 4, 5, and 6, copy and paste, and then we can drag that up here, like so. So if you see at the moment, with our outline, our selection outline on our design pieces, there's little arrows. So if we pull those arrows now, that will increase and decrease our sizing. But if we click it again, you can now see that they change to curved arrows. So we can actually then turn our design around, like so. And I just might click it again, drag it out here a little bit. There we go. So if you wanted to do that again, okay, there we go. So if you have a look in our sequence menu now, you can see that we have our 3 teardrop appliques created. Okay. The next thing we're going to create is our little crescent in here. So we're going to zoom in. We're going to select digitize, and we're going to create that crescent just by following that outline, like so. We then go rectangle selection to complete it. We're going to turn off our outline because we only want our internal stitches in this one. and we're going to change our color. So if we go blue, oh, sorry, let's try that again. We're going to go blue down there. So we've now got that shape. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to come through and we're going to create, I'll zoom out a little bit here, we're going to create this pattern through here. And to do that, we're going to go digitize, we're going to start here, we're going to create our curve for our first part, then we've come here, so that little node that I've placed there was the left click of the mouse. If I come up to the center here, I can go right, left, right, left, and continue working around until we get to the end. Okay, so to delete that node, you just hit backspace and then you can reposition. Like so. And then we're just going to follow that line around. And then when we're back to the beginning, you can see that we've completed the shape. It is now white. We're going to press rectangle selection. We're going to change our fill to blue, turn off our outline, like so. We're now going to create this one. So I'm just going to select on this one, copy and paste, move it into position. We're going to mirror it and then curve it around until we get it into position, like so. Back a little bit. And come down a bit closer. There we go. Okay. So if we left it the way it is now and sent it through to our machine would stitch out this section through here. It would stop. It would then come over here, start again, stitch out through this section all the way around, stop, and then stitch out that section. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to weld these three together so they actually create one single pattern piece. So I'm holding down my control button on my keyboard. I'm going to select the three pieces that I want to weld together. I'm then going to come up to shaping and select weld out of our drop-down menu. So you can now see over here in our sequence menu that they're an all-in-one design piece. So now it will just continue stitching all the way around without stopping. Okay. The next thing we're going to create is our little crescents in here. So same process. We go digitize, create our outline shape, like so. Rectangle selection, change it to blue, remove our outline. I'm going to come down here next. So digitize, create our outline, like so. Rectangle selection, change to blue, remove our outline. Digitize, create our outline, rectangle selection. See how there it's a bit straight? If you wanted to adjust that, it's just a matter of pressing Edit Node, holding down your left click on your mouse, and just moving it to where you want to. And then we press rectangle selection again. We're going to change it to blue, remove our outline, and we can move on to our last little crescent. Digitize, outline, rectangle selection, change to blue, remove our outline. So if you wanted to change your stitch angle, you can come in here and select stitch flow and have them facing towards each other, like so. So if then you wanted this one facing the same way, it's just a matter of selecting that one, and that will change all those angles as well. So now all those standard stitch through here will actually be stitched out in that same direction. Okay, so if we wanted to have a look at just our design that we've created so far, we can come up to View, and where it says Backdrop, we can hide our backdrop. So you can see here now, we've just got our design. If we wanted to get rid of our grid, we can turn our grid off, and now you can just see our stitches that we've created. So I'm going to turn our artwork back on. So we're going to bring it above embroidery, like so. Actually, if we come down here and edge enhance. There we go. Okay. So the next thing we're going to create in our block is our little flower through here. So we're going to start by selecting Digitize. We're going to come up here, and using our right and left clicks on our mouse, we're going to create a shape just as we did before. So with using your right and left clicks to create those sharp point and curves, you don't have to worry about going click, 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 click all the way around that curve. Just by using the couple of nodes, that will give you a nice clean stitch flow. Okay, and back to the beginning. So we go rectangle selection, and that will give us our shape. We're going to turn off our outline because we just want our centerpiece. So the next thing we want to do is we want to create the hole in the center. So we're going to select our shape for our circle, and we're going to create our circle. So if I create it out here to start with, go rectangle selection, check that we don't have proportion selected. We're going to change our size to 62 high by 62 wide. Now that's going to give us our nice clear circle. And we're going to change it to green. So the only reason we're changing it to green is it's going to give us our two different colors in our design here, so that we can, when we work with them, they won't blend into each other. So we're going to move our circle over here. It's a little bit big. Okay, let's just make it a little bit small. Okay. Okay. Might drop that down to 50, I think. That looks a bit better. Okay. So the circle in the center here in green represents what size circle that we want to actually cut out from our flower. So if we're happy with that, we then select the two shapes, because we want to cut the circle out from the flower around the outside. We come up to shaping and we trim. Okay. So with our green circle, if we then remove our internal, you can now see that it's cut that hole out, and we're still left with our green shape. So what we're going to do is we're going to move our green shape up here, like so, to hide it out the way. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to select our white section, and at the moment it's set up as a step fill, but we're going to change it to a satin fill. So it's going to give us a nice representation of flower petals around the outside. And if you zoom in here, you can see that we've actually got stitches going all over the place. So we want to clean those up so that they're all facing in the same direction, and it gives a nice flow. To do that, while we've got it selected, so while we've still got that purple around the outside, we're going to select our stitch flow. And we're going to draw our lines down to indicate which way we would like our stitches to go. So as you can see here, as I add these lines down, it's now forced those stitches into that same direction. And we're just going to continue around until we've got all our stitches facing the way that we want them to go. And just continue around. Like so. So you can see here I've still got a few in there, so we just want to bring some more lines down that way. We're going to move up along this side. So depending on the angle, sometimes they fall into line quickly, sometimes you need to add a couple extra points in there when it's being naughty, like that one there. There we go. And we are back to the beginning. So then if we click rectangle selection, you can now see that it all flows around in one sequence. Okay, we're going to check that we've got our overlaps. We want our underlay, and we want to change to pink. So we're going to set our inside to pink, but we want to leave our outline off. Okay, so remember this green stitch that we had up here previously? We're going to come back to that now. And it's going to be our tack down stitch. So we're actually going to create an applique piece of fabric in the center here, but instead of just having our normal satin stitch around the outside, we've actually got like a little petals that we've created with those pink satin stitch. So if we remember in our sequence, the green refers to our tack down stitch, and we need a black stitch for our placement line. So while we have it selected, we're going to go copy and paste, and it's popped up a green one down here. We're going to change that one to black. We're going to hold down our left click on our mouse, and we're just going to drag that up here before the green. The green stitch at the moment is still just a standard, so we need to make that a double. So now if you look at that little flower, we've got our tack down stitch in black, sorry, our placement stitch in black, our tack down stitch in green, and then we're finishing off in the pink. So it doesn't have to be just that standard satin stitch. You can make it quite decorative. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a bit of a decorative stitch in the center of it, just to sprucen the design up a little. And to do that, we're going to select our circle again. We're going to create our circle in the center. So rectangle selection. Okay, so we're a bit off. So if we change that, and we make our height 31 and our width 31, and then that gives us an even circle. Drag it down a little bit, just using our keys on our keyboard. Okay, so we now have a center circle. We're going to change it to pink, but we want to change, select it. We're going to change it to pink. So we're going to change our outline as well as our fill stitch to pink. So over here in our properties, you can see that our outline is selected because it's lighter in color and it's a running stitch. So we're going to change that to our satin stitch with our 3.5, our underlay. We're going to come over to our fill, and we're going to select stitches. We're going to select stitch 172, and you can now see that we have a decorative stitch in the center there. If we wanted to change our stitch flow, it's just a matter of selecting our design and changing the angle. And now our little balls go in the other direction, like so. Just move that over a bit. There we go. So when we're happy with that, we're going to select all our pieces in there. So you've got the placement, tack down, the decorative stitch, and then our centerpiece. So the reason that we have created our decorative stitch first and then the centerpiece last is if you create the centerpiece first and you are creating the stitches on the fabric, you've got to remember that you're going to get a little bit of shrinkage. So by creating the satin stitch that is going to hold all that fabric down in place, it's giving it stability so that when you do your decorative stitches in the center, you won't have as much pulling in. Okay, so now that we've got that all selected, we're going to go copy and paste, and we're going to move that one over to this side. So if we come up here and hide, you can now see that we have created our applique part of our block. So when you're thinking about in the hoop projects, like our in the hoop block, what it normally does is you send it through to your machine, it will do our placement stitch for our fleece or wadding or whatever you're using in the center. It will then use a tack down stitch to hold that in place. We then lay our plain fabric, so in this case it's a white homespun, over the top, and then we do our decorative stuff. So when you're actually creating your project, you actually work backwards. So what we've done is we've created our decorative part first, and then we create our boxes after. So to do that, we come down here to our shape. We select rectangle, and we're going to create a box around the outside, like so. So you'll see there we've got all those stitches hiding our design. So we don't want that, we just want that outline. So we're going to turn off our fill, and then we have our outline. So you can see at the bottom here now, we have our outline stitch. So we have our placement stitch. So that will be our placement stitch for where we put our fleece. So if we copy and paste, change our next one to green, change it to a double. That's going to be our tack down stitch for our fleece, and that's going to hold it into position. The next would be we copy and paste again, but this time we're going to change it to red. So we're just changing our outline to red. We're leaving it as a run stitch, and we're going to change our outline width to 5. So that's going to give us like a basting stitch, and that will allow us to baste our main fabric down in our hoop, and then we can come over the top and do our decorative stitches. So thinking about when you head to your embroidery machine, these 3 stitches here are the ones that we normally do first. So we're going to select all 3 and just move them back up to the top in our sequence menu. So all I'm doing at the moment is holding down my mouse and scrolling to the top, So if we come over to our slow redraw now, let's just up that speed so it gives us a bit. And this is how it would stitch out in our machines. So it's doing our placement stitch. And then you lay your fleece down, tack it down with our tack down stitch. It would then come into placing our fabric down over the top. That would give us our tacking down, because remember it was just like a basting stitch. So that's just to hold our top layer of fabric into place while we stitch out our applique. And then once it does that, it then starts into our applique pieces and so forth until we go all the way through. Like so. So if we come back to our design, okay, let's just center that up. So the next thing we need to do in the hoop blocks is create some stippling. Now, there are some quick stippling functions in here that if you actually press, you can come up here and create an ambience quilting around the edge. I'm not going to do it for this project because if you do, when you come in here, you actually get stippling pieces in here, and I don't want them in there. I want to have that control that I can create stippling through this area in here, this area in there, and down there, and not have it interfere in any of those other areas. So when you actually stitch this part out, having the stippling around there, this will actually give it like a raised effect. So to do that, we're going to use Digitize. We're going to come in here. We're going to follow that up to about there. Come down here, and then we're going to trace around. Let's change that. The outside here. Like so. So depending on how close you would like to go to your embroidery design pieces will depend on where you place this outline stitch. So I'm going to come back to here. So the reason I'm not going to come all the way around here is when it creates the stippling stitch, it'll just create like a straight line here, and I don't want that effect. So we come back to our line, go back to our beginning, like so. Okay. We're now going to select, I'm going to select this, sorry, try that again. I'm going to have this in a black. Okay, select it. Where's it gone? There. So at the moment you can see it's in white. I'm going to change it to black, and that is purely so when I send it through to my embroidery machine I can see the stitching as opposed to the white stipple. I've turned off our outline because we don't want an outline coming around here. We just want it to look like that we've gone in and stippled around that block. We then come over to our fill and we change it to a stipple. So you can see here, if we left it on our presetting, it would actually be quite a dense stipple. But I want to open it up and give it more of a traditional look. So if you click on density and change density to 5 mil, what that is actually the density is the distance between the actual stitches. So if you wanted to go larger, you could take it out to a 7, like so. And I'm going to go remove, we don't want to remove overlaps. Okay, so you can now see that that gives it more of a traditional look of stipple in your project. We're going to come down here now and create this next section. So same as we did before, we select digitize. We're going to come along here. And of course, remember that the larger you go with the density, the larger the area you're going to need. So you're not going to be able to put stippling in these tiny little areas through there because you'll just end up with a straight line. It won't actually give you a nice, neat stipple finish. So we go select, change it to black, remove our outline, select our stipple, change our density to 7. So you can see there it's done it. So see how it's got that circle and then that straight line through there. I don't like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go edit node. I'm then going to drag this node closer like that. And you can now see that it's a nicer stitch formation through there. And we're going to put one down on this side too. It's the same as we did before. We select digitize. We're going to come in here. Like so. Change to black, remove our outline, change to stipple, change to 7, like so. So if you wanted to put more stipple in there, you can bring it down to 5. You just need to remember that if you're going to use 5 on one area, you need to use it consistently throughout all of the design. We add a node down. You might get a bit more of a shape in there. No. And it's just a matter of manipulating it around. See, I don't like that, so we're going to bring that back, like so. Change that to a 5. Bring it around here a bit more, like so. Check that we've got our overlap selected. So by having our removing overlaps, it means that it won't take out any of the stitch pieces in those stitches that we have at the start of the design, those basting stitches. So the basting stitch, the placement stitch, and that tack down stitch. Okay, you can add a little bit in here if you like. So it's up to you how much or how little stippling you would like in your design. Okay, we can actually move that around there, bring that out a bit more. Like that. Okay. Don't see how we go down here. I don't know how much we will get in this area. Okay. Just a little bit. There we go. Okay. So the other thing I'm going to add in, if I come up the top here, to that one, I'm going to copy and paste it, and it'll come up down the end. I'm then going to drag that up here, just above our stippling. So this box that we're placing in here will give us our tack down stitch for putting our backing on our block. So this is now a in the hoop, quilt as you go block. Okay, so now that we have all our design aspects in our sequence and we've got them in the correct sequence order that we want to go in, so we've got our placement, tacking, basting, we then go into our applique. From our applique, we then go into our basting of our backing fabric, and then we go into our stippling, which holds everything together. So you can now see, while we've got that selected, if we select all of it, okay, you can see up here in our sizing that our sizing's gone off again. So remember, we brought in our design into our original sizing. We now need to resize that so that we can get back to our 8 by 8 inch block. So while we have everything selected like this, we can come in and we can change our width again to 203.2, and we're going to change our height to 203.2, and that will give us our 8 by 8 inch block. We're just going to go through and check that we have all our stitching is still in our nice format, and mainly our stippling, because when you change your block sizes with your stippling will actually recalculate. So you just need to check that you've got all that. Okay. So once you are happy with that, you can now save it. So we go File, Save As, and we're going to save it as in the hoop. Applique. Ooh, let's try that again. Block. And you're ready to send it off to your machine and stitch out. So don't forget, the key to this is to go through and stitch out your designs that you create yourself, because what you actually see on your screen isn't always what you're going to get in your stitches. Well, thanks for joining us today. I hope you learnt a lot of information and I look forward to seeing your show and tell. Until next time, happy stitching